Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another SRI Daily COVID-19 call. This is our global conversation about all kinds of topics related to the COVID-19 virus. Thank you so much for being here. It's Friday. It's episode 36. That means New York has been on lockdown for 36 days and 36 days straight of this show. We're so grateful for the immense love that we feel from around the world. People have called the show uplifting. Someone said this is a lifeline, but this is my lifeline, and I need this more than you. So if you're watching this right now, please hit share so your friends can come in from around the world. Tag anyone you know who would benefit from listening to this conversation. Today, we have a very special episode about immigration issues. The US immigration system, already under upheaval in the Trump years, has been upended even further by COVID-19. Meet experts who discuss the present and future of immigration. Ask them anything. We're going to be joined by Prashanthi Reddy, who is an immigration attorney, and Allan Wernick, who's on Twitter at @Wernick. He's an immigration law columnist for the New York Daily News and a professor at Baruch College, where he runs a very special program that he's going to tell us about. So please hit share right now. You can find me on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, just find me on LinkedIn and hit share. If you're on Twitter, find me on Twitter and hit share. If you're watching in Facebook, tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. We want to hear your comments. We want to hear your questions. Anything to do with US immigration, I've got the right two people for you. And you know that we couldn't do this show without the support of our wonderful sponsors, and we have a sponsor in frontlinefoodtrucks.com. frontlinefoodtrucks.com. You can go in and donate money so that frontlinefoodtrucks.com can go out to New York, NYU, Langone, and other hospitals and give food that's sponsored by La Colombe, Sweet Green, Chobani, Pine Bar, all these big brands, and your money will go entirely to that. Even this ad is sponsored by a third party who wants to be anonymous. This way you can, by donating even a few dollars, you're helping this show, you're helping the hospital workers, and you're helping frontlinefoodtrucks.com. Bob Goldberg, who is the founder of the New York Truck Food Association, is doing such great work. Some of you know his mother, Shelley Goldberg, was the New York One News parenting reporter for 25 years. So you know she did something right because her son is doing something good for America and the world right now. Please become a sponsor. Our prices are insane, as they used to say in an old New York City ad, so inexpensive. Maybe you don't have a business, but you may want to support a nonprofit. Maybe you want to do a birthday shout out. Maybe you want to do a wedding proposal. How about doing it on our little show here? We have people around the world watching. Just email me, sri@sri.net, SREE@SREE.net. So without further ado, folks, let me introduce you to our wonderful guests who are going to add so much to this conversation. They're going to drive this. Please ask us questions. Anything you want to know about any aspect of US immigration, these are the folks. Let's see who's watching. Jonathan Borstein is watching in the East Village. Hi, Jonathan. He's got his face mask on, his bandana. Paula Kiger is watching in Tallahassee, Florida. Paula and I work together every week on the big show for us, which is the New York Times Sunday Read Along. We read the New York Times every Sunday for 5 years on Facebook Live and now LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. And we have a very special guest on Sunday, Judge Rosemary Aquilina. That name is familiar because she put Larry Nassar behind bars for 176 years, something like that. She's also a very strong and powerful judicial leader. She's an author, and she's going to read the New York Times with us on Sunday, 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. We'll also have a doctor joining us. That's the way we do that big show. That's at 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Mara is watching from Toronto. Thank you so much. Pradnya is watching from Silver Spring, Maryland. And our friend Stephen Kaplan's watching from Ramsey, New Jersey. He's got a great new show, The Spin It Social Hour. Please watch on his channels. Go and follow him on Twitter and on Facebook. And if you're watching right now, please share this. One note of caution, if you're watching inside a closed Facebook group, as someone here is trying to do, that's great. but you can't share outside a closed Facebook group. So you need to switch out, go into my regular Facebook that you'll see me in a suit with a beard and a yellow tie. That's me, and share that. If you tag people there, share people there, everybody in the world can join us on Facebook, YouTube. But if you're in a closed Facebook group, only people who are in that group can see it. But please do share. And hi, Professor, watching from sunny Santo Domingo. Roman said, thank you, Roman, for watching. U.S. immigration issues. Everybody tag a friend who would care about this. And let me introduce you now to Allan Wernick. Hi, Allan.
Hi, how do you do?
And
Nice to
Prashanthi
see
Reddy.
you.
Thank you both for being here. Am I supposed to call you counselors, professor? What do I call you?
Call me Allan.
Okay, Allan.
Prashanthi.
Thank you so much. Prashanthi, let's start with you. Tell us how you're doing. How's the family? We always start with that on the show. It's the most important thing.
Doing fine. I think, the first week was hard because there was so much of anxiety and, it was new. So took some getting used to and working from home and setting up my office to work from home. The printer wouldn't work, scanner doesn't work, the usual logistics issues that we have. But we've managed. We're all set. My son is doing well. He's 12 years old now. He's doing remote schooling, and there was some anxiety with reference to that as well. But I think they're getting into the grind of things. Husband is working from home. So in a way, this is the silver lining, I think, for this whole COVID-19 thing, that we're together as a family. We're spending more time, and there is more flexibility. It's not like rush. So that's the silver lining, I think, with the situation.
Thank you, Allan. How are you doing? Where are you, Allan?
Well, I'm very fortunate that my dog encouraged me to get a place outside of the city so he could run around in the yard. So I did that a few years ago, and he's allowed me to come stay with him during this crisis. So I'm out of the city, which is much safer. New York City is really, as most people know, is really going through very, very hard times. So I'm doing well. Shopping is still it's amazing. You go shopping, it's like a scary thing to do. It's the scariest thing we do. But I'm doing all right. I'm very pleased that the City University of New York has continues to support all of our staff in the project I run, Community Citizenship Now. So we have all of our people are working from home. We're doing consultations, and when you give me a chance, I'll give out the phone numbers where people can call. Our service is 100% free. We have no geographic or income requirements. So I'm spending time doing the Zoom chats and podcasts and being on shows like yours. So I'm really flattered that you've invited me, and but I'm doing all right. It's getting a little old. And I think that's why you're seeing, people starting to protest and complain. I think after a few weeks, people are starting to get a little bit cabin fever. So we'll see how this turns out.
Absolutely. Why don't we give the phone number out now, and we'll keep giving it out throughout the show?
Sure. The phone number for free services, and our people will call you for a consultation. We can also help you complete your application over the phone. And tell you how to send it in, and so you can start getting the queue for citizenship or for a green card, a DACA, temporary protected status. Our phone number is 646-664-9400, and you can text us at 929-334-3784, and you will have a consultation with an experienced immigration lawyer. Things are a little bit difficult now with immigration, with the offices closed and they're not doing interviews. But it's best if you qualify for some benefit, like to become a U.S. citizen or to get a green card through family relationship. It's best if you get started now. At least you get in the queue, so that when operations resume with the immigration service and with the U.S. consulates, you'll at least be in line to be processed to get the status that you deserve.
Before we leave you, just to get the numbers again, call us 646-664-9400. And
Yes.
the text number is
929-334-3784.
334-3784. Okay.
Yes, and just a reminder, all our services are free, so don't worry about paying. We can't help every kind of case. We mainly help people with family immigration and citizenship, DACA, and temporary protected status. Those are the main things we do, but we can consult with you on almost any kind of case. You know, if you're in deportation proceedings, we don't typically handle deportation and removal, but we do consultations, and we'll help you find a lawyer who can help you at no charge.
That's excellent. So we'll have the numbers up on the screen.
Great, thank you.
Please share it with your friends, everybody. This is a great service Allan's offering. 646-664-9400 and 929-343-3784. Is it restricted to New York City, or can
No, we take people from all over the country and all over the world.
Wow, that's very generous. And we'll learn more about the program. We'll show people the website, all that good stuff. So
and respect for that generosity has to go to the City University of New York. We're a project of the university. We started out as a project that was mainly designed to help our students. That was 27 years ago. But since then, we've developed and grown, and the university views this as a public service. They view helping immigrants as not just something for our students, but for something that the university can do as a public university for the immigrant community.
That's awesome. Let's just read some of these comments here. Pradnya says, smart dog, in a tribute to your dog. Jody's watching from Fort Lauderdale. Hi, Jody. And Courtney's watching from Tucson, Arizona. And she says that people are getting cabin fever, but it's so important not to put others in jeopardy. And Kimberly says, I fear a lot of us share is that undocumented immigrants in particular are afraid to seek medical advice and attention during this crisis because of the threat of detention, deportation. And of course, those who are undocumented seem less likely to be afford not to go to work, even if symptomatic. What reports are you folks seeing about these issues? So let's first have Prashanthi just tell us a little bit about her business and how she can help people, and then we'll get into that. It's a good question to start. And thank you.
Sure, Sri, thank you. I have 20 plus years of experience as an immigration attorney. Our offices are in Midtown Manhattan. If anyone wants to send me an email or go to my website, it's www.reddyesq.com. My email is Prashanthi, my first name, @Reddy, last name, esq.com. So Reddy ESQ is one word. So Prashanthi @reddyesq.com. And during this time, I have been taking free, I'm doing a free service of taking phone calls without charging, doing consultations. Email is the best though. So if you have any questions, you can just say, you heard me on Sri's show and send me an email and I'll be happy to respond. Family-based petitions, immigration, business immigration. So that's what I do. I do mostly business immigration, so H's, L's, employment-based green cards. I also do family-based petitions. And I don't do too much of asylum, mostly pro bono, and I don't do any detentions or removal. So I do mostly business immigration and family immigration.
All right, so let's go to that question that was asked about immigrants. What are you hearing about this issue of whether they're feeling more worried and therefore not going into getting checked, things like that? Go ahead. Then we'll go to Allan. Go ahead.
Okay. So since I deal with a lot of H-1B people, so these are people who are on a H-1B status, non-immigrants. It's a double whammy for them because firstly, suppose they get laid off, they're out of a job, so financially it's difficult for them. And secondly, their immigration status is also affected. So in general, it's bad enough if you lose your job, but this is a situation that is worse because you're losing your immigrant status as well, your non-immigrant status. So in these situations, what's happening is that the employee is being laid off mostly because either the business is doing bad, so they can't afford to keep him anymore or her anymore, or it's because they can't work remotely. In some areas, like in information technology, people can work remotely and they're still managing to keep their jobs, but in many areas they cannot work remotely, and therefore they're having to be laid off or benched, or so that's really hard because the USCIS regulations don't allow for a H-1B to be benched or to be laid off. So what the USCIS regulations are is that an employer has to pay the employee even if there's no work. And if the employer requires the employee to be benched or put in non-productive status, then the employer has to continue paying the employee. But if the employee, on the other hand, decides because of medical reasons or family reasons to be in non-productive status, then the employer doesn't have to pay. So it's very tricky. It depends on what the situation is. So in the situation where the employer says that they don't have work, then in those cases, USCIS unfortunately asks the employer to terminate the employment. So they have to terminate the employment, and then the H-1B person goes out of status, because you always have to be on a job to be on H-1B status. So in this situation, I guess there are a few things that can be done, and maybe we'll talk about it later. But the main thing is there is something called a 60-day rule, which can be used. So basically, you have 60 days to find another job, or to come back to the same job. So if it goes beyond 60 days, this whole lockdown, then a lot of people will be in trouble. But until then, we have the 60-day period for all those people on H-1B who are listening, or for someone who knows someone else who's on H-1B, please let them know that there's a 60-day grace period that they can use during the situation. With reference to, people who are out of status, going to hospitals, that will be a problem depending on which state they go to. I think in New York, it's still not a problem. Allan, again, can talk more about this. But I think they don't ask for status in New York, but in many other states they do. So that is a huge problem.
Thank you. Allan, your thoughts?
What I want to say is that I haven't heard a lot of individual cases, but it's a general concern that people have in the community. The immigrant community, particularly the undocumented community, is very afraid about accessing any kind of service where they might expose themselves and they may get into trouble. Going to hospitals is typically not, or doctor or clinics is typically not a place where people are picked up by the Immigration Service. So that should be an assurance for people. The other thing that's really important is that the Immigration Service had recently issued new regulations regarding who is considered a public charge. That means when a person goes to apply for a green card, they have to show, in most cases, particularly in family immigration cases, that they're not going to, that they're not going to need some kind of public benefit. And the Immigration Service has made very, very clear that any kind of benefit you get, medical care, cash payments, any benefit that you get that stems from the response to the coronavirus crisis will not be counted against you. So this is information that needs to get out in the community, because people are afraid that if they go to get a public benefit, later they apply to get a green card, that somehow this is going to be used against it. It will not. And the Immigration Service has made that very clear. I'm very confident that they will follow that rule. So it's very, very important that undocumented immigrants and all immigrants take advantage of whatever testing opportunities there are, medical care opportunities that there are, and protect your family and protect yourself.
Those are great suggestions. Let's get some questions in. I'm getting some questions via text. Some people are a little afraid to ask questions publicly, I guess. First, let's talk about that, because I think what you've been saying has been reassuring to some folks, but at the same time, there's a feeling that under President Trump, even the standard things that apply in terms of people, even the regular process can be a little warped, and there's some scary stuff that's happening. So Prashanthi, how do you address that? And then I have a specific question for you.
In general, yeah, it's pretty bad. And since, again, I do a lot of non-immigrant petitions, it's, across the board, it's bad. And we've been having an actual task of just doing mundane, regular things. What do you take for granted, like filing, like an extension of someone's work visa, filing it's bad with the process is concerned. It's bad. The interpretation of the law is bad, and just the processing time is horrible. So all these things put together, as it is, cases are getting denied, even extensions are getting denied, H1 extensions, H1 transfers. So it's kind of like to be in a non-immigrant status right now. It's a curse. I don't know how people really are managing. How they stay in this status, and because everything is so uncertain, and it's anxiety, it's your anxiety, because you don't know tomorrow if your H1 will be extended, if your green card will get approved, and there's a huge wait for green cards, especially if you're an Indian national and many other nationalities, the Chinese national, Mexican, Filipino. There's a huge wait just to get a green card. You're doing everything right here, but the process doesn't support you. And this is a systemic problem. It's been a problem for a while, but even more so under the present administration, because they're just closing the doors and making things even more difficult, as difficult as they can, without having to pass, new legislation. That's what they're doing right now.
We're looking at your website, reddyesq.com. And where is this photo taken? Tell everyone.
Oh, that's downtown in front of the courts.
Nice. And you studied at the University of Pennsylvania in law school. Tell us a little bit of your backstory. Also, where were you born? And
so I was born in England. My dad went there to study medicine. Like a lot of people did. People who are from India will know, in the 70s, they either came to the US as engineers, or they went to England as doctors, or went to the US. But it was more England at that time. So anyway, my dad was there. So we were there for like 7 years. So I came back to India, Hyderabad, when I was 7 years old. And then my education, everything was in Hyderabad. And then I came back. I came to the US as a student, and I went to law school here. I got my LLM, and since then, since 1997, I've been doing immigration. So that's because that's something that seemed to make more sense for me to do. So being an immigrant myself and going through the process. And
we understand that. All right, let's go to Allan. Allan, I'm going to show your website as well. This great project that you run on Citizenship Now. People can find that easily online, and the website is under CUNY. If they just search CUNY Citizenship, it shows up. And this is the website. Tell us about this.
Well, we started, our project started, before I was a professor at the City University, I had my own private practice, so I'm familiar with a number of the issues that Ms. Reddy's been talking about. CUNY Citizenship Now started a little over 25 years ago. It started out primarily to help our students become U.S. citizens as part of a voter registration effort the university runs every year. And it started with me and a half-time law student, and now we've grown to where we have 6 offices throughout New York City. We have a very generous grant from the New York City Council, so we're able to place attorneys in those offices. My parents were both immigrants. I was born in the United States. But as immigrants, they instilled in me a great sense of, fighting for social justice. I carried that with me through college and law school. And really, I ended up in immigration law pretty much by accident. Could have been a number of many areas I went to. Some of my friends went into labor law, criminal defense law, and other areas, but I went into immigration. I'm very, pleased that I've been able to run a project like CUNY Citizenship Now that every year helps thousands and thousands of people on the path to U.S. citizenship. I want to mention also that I write for the New York Daily News every Monday. My column appears there. I've done that for more than 25 years. I'm just very, very grateful that I ended up at the university, number one, because that allows me to do this work and they pay me to do it. But I'm also very grateful that I've had the opportunity to work in a field like this where so many people are in need of help, and that I'm able to work with my many colleagues at my project to help them.
That's awesome. It's just really, really great.
It is awesome, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so folks, we have questions coming in. Please share this video right now with your friends and family. Tag anybody who you think would benefit. You can just hit share. You can retweet. Just get this out there. I want to thank our two producers, Vandana Menon. She's tweeting at Vandana_Menon, and Rose Horowitz. She's Rose Horowitz 31. They're the two producers who make the show possible, working with me. Please do share this. Please follow them, and let's get this conversation out there. So many people will benefit. Even if they can't watch it live, they can watch the recording. And I hope, Prashanthi, your families also shared this, or otherwise you can wave to them to make sure they do that when we're doing this. So we have a question that's come in, and I want to read that to you. I also have some on my phone. But Pavan asks, I hope everyone is staying safe. I have a question about the new process for H-1B application implemented this year. There are many rumors that due to the software glitch, many genuine applications were rejected. Additionally, many duplicate applications were selected in lottery. I would like to know, is there any chance of conducting the lottery again? And how this multiple application issue for H-1B can be solved? Please advise. Thank you. Thank you, Pavan, for your question. And good luck to you and anyone else who's in dealing with immigration questions right now. Prashanthi, you want to start that? I didn't even know there was a new H-1 process, so maybe start with that, please.
Yeah, so this year, to top everything off, they decided to start a new H-1B registration process. So as a lot of you might know or might not know, the H-1B is oversubscribed. The H-1B numbers are oversubscribed. So you have 85,000 H-1s, 65 for bachelor's degrees and 20,000 for master's degrees. So you have a total of only this many H-1B numbers, and you have like 250,000 people applying. So it's more than 3 times. So they've been holding a lottery to decide who gets in from the last couple of years. I think last 4 or 5 years or more. And each time you file a petition, and then by the summertime you get to know whether your petition has been selected in the lottery or not. So this time what they decided to do instead, they decided to do a pre-registration so that you could just fill out the name and number and a simple form. And so you don't have to file an entire petition. So you could just fill out the form with the name and number, date of birth, etc. of the employee. And then they would decide whether it got selected in the lottery or not. And there was a $10 fee involved for each applicant. And then they would do a lottery and then decide, who gets in. And then once you get approved in the lottery, you would then file the entire H-1B petition. And they gave 90 days to do this. So that's till the end of June. And yes, it was a disaster because I think they tried to do it too quickly. So number of issues happened in the first week, especially. The forms were disappearing. We couldn't log in, and especially for attorneys, because it was a 2-step process where we had to fill out the form and then the client had to approve it. So the client couldn't see the documents on their end. They were clicking on buttons and nothing was happening. So, typical issues that happen when you don't vet the program properly. And then one of my clients who, did it on their own, I found out that all their petitions got denied because for some reason it said approved at the time that they filed it and submitted the button, it said submitted, but then all of them got rejected because apparently there was no funds in the bank, but there were funds in the bank, so we don't know what actually happened there. And if the bank transaction didn't go through for the $10, I'm saying, because you have to pay $10 on each application, and for some reason they put in their bank information and it showed as submitted, but there's a deadline because you have to submit everything by March 20th. So after March 20th, they find out that their 20-odd applications that they filed were all rejected because the payment didn't go through, and which is obviously a glitch in the system because there was money in the bank, so we don't know what happened. So, and there's nothing they could do after that. With reference to the question as to whether they'll do another H-1B registration, I doubt it. Another lottery, I doubt it. I don't think they'll do that. I was at least hoping that they would extend the deadline for another month to do the registrations because of all the glitches that we had in the system, but they didn't do that either. And I'm hoping that they'll extend the 90 days because it's so hard to file petitions, in this climate. Whether the employees are doing it on their own or whether you're doing it, through an attorney, it's just really difficult to file petitions at this time. So I'm hoping they'll extend the deadline beyond June, but who knows? Let's see what happens.
Thank you, Prashanthi. Allan, your thoughts on this?
Well, Prashanthi, I think, laid out some of the technical issues and some of the problems with the program. I would just like to make maybe a political opinion comment and to say that, first of all, it seems pretty ridiculous for an advanced industrialized country to be deciding who among the hundreds of thousands of people who apply for these visas, they only pick 85,000 and they do it by a lottery. So you have a dress designer competing with a nuclear scientist or a cancer researcher. Now, I have nothing against dress designers. That's fine. But it seems to me that a country like the United States should be thinking more carefully about the kind of people it needs. Secondly, these are all people who, one, have advanced education, at least a college degree. They have employers who are ready to employ them. Many of them are among the best and the brightest of educated people from around the world. And if this country wants to advance in science, in engineering, in technology, in the arts, it's going to have to expand the H-1B program. And I'm hoping that when we get an administration, or if we get an administration that is less xenophobic than the current administration, we will expand the H-1B program because it's a terrific program. It's great to get people in. I would point out that, I mentioned there's a quota of 85,000, but that does not apply to university employees or affiliated researchers. So at CUNY, we're okay. We can get our professors in. But, some of our top professors are coming in on these H-1B visas. And, if you look at these major technology companies, they're really hurting for employees at the top level. And the H-1B program is a way to do that, but it needs to be expanded.
Thank you very much, Allan. We're just showing your columns here. Just talk a little bit about some of the things that you write. Let me just read the headlines. USCIS now addressing some problems caused by coronavirus. As coronavirus office closes USCIS offices, all but emergency requests being handled for now. What to do if you're a green card holder stuck abroad during coronavirus. Applying for U.S. citizenship with an expired green card. This is like a school on what's happening here, Allan. You've been writing this for 20 years. We've only gotten to March. So just to see the range of stories, and all your stories are here going back for many, look, 1,100 stories. Did you know that was your count, by the way?
I was not aware of that, but thank you for pointing that out. That's probably off, It's probably, my guess is that it may have even been more than that.
And what do you try to focus on, and what do you do in the column? Just walk us through. I'll click on some of these, and you just talk us through that, please.
Sure. So it's a reader-driven column. I get emails and some snail mail letters, but mainly now emails. I have a website, allanwernick.com, and people go there and they write to me through the website, or sometimes they just write to me directly at questions at allanwernick.com. And I look at them every week, and I try to see which are the greatest concerns of the largest number of people. I pick one of those questions and try to answer them. Occasionally, I will do a commentary on the immigration issues of the day, or new regulations or new rules. But mainly, I try to answer people's questions. Some of them, are very general, like I want to bring my fiance here from another country. But lately, I've been getting a lot of questions about the coronavirus crisis. A lot of people are stuck overseas, and they're very concerned about that. And a lot of people are concerned because the U.S. Immigration Service is basically closed down. They're accepting applications, but they're not doing interviews. So people cannot get interviewed for their green card. They cannot get interviewed to become a U.S. citizen. And just today, I signed on to a letter that was issued by a local city council member, Carlos Menchaca, It was signed on by the leaders of the New York City Council, asking the U.S. Immigration Service to do swearing-in ceremonies and naturalization interviews remotely, because people have a right to become a U.S. citizen. It's something that the statutes of the United States provide for, and they're being denied that opportunity because the offices are closed. So I try to answer the questions of the people. I get questions from all over the world, and I try to do the best I can to answer them.
Thank you, Allan. Let's see here. We want to show this question that's come in. I am an F1 international student. I need to apply for my OPT. So let's talk a little bit about OPT. And this particular question you answered was about how do I go out to print things if I don't have a printer, I'm stuck at home. But kind of more broadly, the OPT, the optional practical training, allows students a certain amount of time before they have to leave the country and they get to work and have permission to work, right? So when everything's in limbo like this, when school's not finished, it might be finished, how am I supposed to get a job and get my OPT? And walk me through that process, please. And then I have a question for Prashanthi.
Well, it's very, very difficult. Of course, OPT option, it's called optional practical training. It's called optional because you get 1 year for every degree that you earn. So if you get a 2-year college degree, you earn 1 year, 4-year college degree, 1 year, master's degree, one year additional, PhD or other kind of doctorate, 1 more year. And of course, you have to graduate to get that. They call it optional because you're allowed to use that during your studies, but most students try to save it to the end. The idea for them is they get a job after college in their field. It has to be something that's related to the area that they've studied, although in this area, immigration is not very strict about that. So they get a job, they can work for up to a year, and then they hope they can get an employer to sponsor them for an H-1B or for a green card. For people in certain fields, in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, you can apply for an extension beyond the additional year, and that's what that reader was asking about. If you file, as I pointed out in my column, if you file your application before your status expires, you can continue to work for 180 days. So that's something that at least it provides some protection. Now, the gentleman who wrote to me said that he cannot, he's afraid to go out. He can't get his papers copied. He has certain documents he needs to file. So I'm hoping that by June 30th, he'll be able to get his application in. I'm expecting, and maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I tend to be optimistic, but I'm expecting that the Immigration Service will issue some kind of guidelines that will allow for some leeway for people who are stuck in this situation. After all, people cannot go out. People are losing their jobs. People cannot leave the United States when their status expires. So you're here, let's say, as an international student, you complete your OPT, you're supposed to leave the United States if you haven't changed to another status. But where are you going to go? It's hard to get a flight out. Many countries are restricting entry. So I'm hoping that the Immigration Service will provide some kinds of benefits for these individuals. I'll give one thing they have done, for instance, just as an example, if you're here on an international student visa, an F1 student visa, you're allowed to take only 3 credits online. But now the Immigration Service has decreed that you can take your complete, you can do your complete education online and still be considered in lawful status. So let's hope that the Immigration Service figures it out and figures out a way, because I think if they don't, they're just going to be sued. I mean, you cannot penalize a person because of circumstances beyond their control. And there are a lot of language in the regulations and statute and guidelines of the Immigration Service that talk about that. So I'm very optimistic that in the next few weeks, we're going to hear something from USCIS. And if they don't, they're going to be sued.
Thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to show everybody this document that I got from a guy named Sean Langdois, who is from Code Canada, that's trying to get Americans to move to Canada. And he's showing us, this is all pre-COVID, H-1B approvals on entry used to be 95.7. Now it's 61.5 year to date in 2019, the last time I saw these. And then in the evidence for visa approval was 22%, and now it's 60%. And charges of smuggling and fraud related to marriage proof increased by 50%. So these are all reflective of an administration that is anti-immigrant. We know that in what we have read, but to see it spelled out so clearly is quite surprising to many people. The other thing, it would also be fair to say that I talked to some of my friends who think that the Trump war on immigration is really a Trump war only on illegal Mexican immigration, and they don't understand that it is a war on immigration.
That's correct.
And that Mr. Miller, Stephen Miller, who is the problem, or one of the problems in this case, he believes that it's better to have a Norwegian fisherman move to America than an IIT engineer move to America. And these IIT engineers and others who support everything this administration doesn't understand the racial politics of this. And by the way, we love Norwegians and we love their fishermen. They don't want to move here. They look at all these enticements to come to America. They're like, no thanks. They have a much better social net, much better life than they could have in many cases here. So let's have each of you reflect on that, please, Prashanthi, and then to Allan.
So yes, with reference to what Allan said earlier, I also wanted to add a few things, if I may. USCIS has done, and DOL and DHS these are all the organizations involved with immigration, but they've taken some measures, but I think not enough. For example, they've said that if you have a deadline, you have a request for further evidence, everything that you do with USCIS or DHS has a deadline. So if they're asking for some documents, there's a deadline to respond to that, whether it be a green card application or something with DOL, Department of Labor, when you're filing a labor certification, or it's a H-1B, there's a request for further evidence, or the H-1B is denied and there's a motion to reopen, like an appeal that you're filing. So everything has a deadline. They said that they'll extend that deadline by 60 days. So that's good news. So, if we miss the deadline because we're not able to get documentation, or we're not, able to contact the client, or the client help us because, there's someone is ill in the family. So we have an extension. And the other thing they've said they'll do is for H-4s, these are H-1B dependents, for H-4s and now for visitor visas, for visitor extensions, that's the B2 and the B1, you need to get biometrics done. And now, since biometrics cannot be done, they've said that they'll use the old biometrics that they have on file. So for extensions, you don't have to go in for biometrics again. And this, I'm hoping, will speed up the process because they don't have to do the biometrics, and that usually adds to the process. It's over 6 months plus to get any decision from USCIS nowadays. So I'm hoping that will help. And then there's another notice that they put up on their website, which basically says that anything else with reference to people who can't leave the country and they can't file an extension, because, for example, the H's, they have a maximum of 6 years that they can stay on a H1, and if they have expired, if that 6 years has expired, then they can't leave the country because they have no flights going out. In that situation, they're saying that each situation will be looked at on a case-by-case basis, and they can decide that unlawful presence doesn't accrue. So they're going to do it on a case-by-case basis. But I wish they would just, across the board say that everything related to immigration is forgiven during this period of time, which makes complete sense because people are already going through so much stress and anxiety that they shouldn't have to think about their immigration status as well. So I just wanted to add that to what Allan said. But with reference to the H1s and the denials, yeah, absolutely. The number of RFEs that we've received, that everyone has received, has increased by 60%. And then after we get the RFE, the number of denials from the RFE is again increased by another 50-60%. And it's ridiculous nowadays, the reasons that they're denying H1s for. As Sri pointed out, H1s are for people who are a specialty occupation. So they're people who have bachelor's and master's degrees, and the job should require a master's or a bachelor's degree. So they're professional individuals. So for them to say, for example, that a computer professional, like a systems analyst or a programmer analyst, doesn't require a bachelor's degree is ridiculous. And that's the reason that the reasons that they're using, ridiculous reasons that makes no sense in real life. They're saying that and they're denying cases. They're saying a software engineer doesn't look like the software engineer that you're hiring requires a bachelor's degree. I mean, everybody else says that it does, but USCIS says that it doesn't. So, I mean, they're not using any logic or anything really that makes sense to deny these cases. And so I would urge employers, employees, whoever is affected by this, to file a lawsuit in federal court. This is the only way of dealing with this now. And it might even be cheaper than having to deal with extensions and having to again refile your petition with USCIS and putting your client in jeopardy, because every time you file anything with USCIS, there's a chance that it'll get denied. So it's a good liability filing anything with them. So you're better off filing if you haven't gotten the extension, rather than refiling, or if you've gotten the extension for a shorter period of time, you're better off filing a lawsuit with federal court and then getting it approved there, because they're likely to approve it, because USCIS is not following regulation here.
I would just say, Prashanthi, that I understand what you're saying, but for the average immigrant, hearing that you have to sue in federal court doesn't sound
it's scary. But actually, that's what I'm saying. They shouldn't be scared, because it's a simple process. That's what I'm saying. It's a simple process because it doesn't go to trial, and none of these immigration cases are going through trial. It's and you find an attorney who can do it, file a petition, and then there's a counter. It's actually a simple process. If you can file a H1 with USCIS, you can do this. It's simpler.
All right.
It's easier to do.
We've got lots of questions coming in. First, Allan, just a thought on that political statement I made about those Norwegians.
Well, here's the story. Immigration law is affected by three factors. There's the statute, which is a law made by Congress, signed by a president. The regulations, which are promulgated by the agencies after comment. And then there's the day-to-day policies and implementation of those regulations. And what we've seen under the Trump administration is an unprecedented effort to make every type of immigration status more difficult to attain. U.S. citizenship, permanent residence, H-1Bs that's being talked about, visitors visas. And they have the authority and the power to do that within limitation, though. So people should not feel that if they have a eligibility for a benefit, they qualify for citizenship, they will in fact become a U.S. citizen. There's nothing Immigration Service can do about that. They have to let them do it. And I have two comments about sort of what's going on. Three, actually. First of all, people often ask me, well, what happens if we get a different president? It could change like this, like this, like this, because the policies and the implementation of the regulations, it doesn't have to go through Congress. It's something that can be done in a letter, a memo, or even a phone call in many of these situations to make this process more fair, more just, and more consistent with the statute and the court cases. The second thing I would say about it is that one thing that's different about the current period than when I was first starting to deal with immigration restrictionism, when I was a younger lawyer, is that it was, there weren't people in government who really understood how the immigration system worked. The late Ted Kennedy understood how it worked, but there was nobody in the White House. Typically, the immigration commissioner was a political appointee. It was somebody who had donated money or the president owed a favor to. It was not somebody who was particularly knowledgeable or expert in the area. Pardon me. But Stephen Miller really understands immigration law, and there are a number of Republicans and conservatives who really understand immigration law. Some of them have practiced as immigration lawyers. So that sort of gives them a little bit of an advantage over the way things have gone on in the past. And the third thing I would say about it is that the administration, President Trump, talks about undocumented immigration, criminals. He wants to go over the bad people. But it's pretty clear from what we've heard about H-1Bs, from what's going on with naturalization, that it's not just about keeping the bad people, quote unquote, bad people out. It's about keeping every people out. And that Norwegian fisherman, I don't think the government wants that person to come in either. So while I think it's a general rule, I think you can say that there's discrimination based on race and national origin. Clearly, people from Africa, people from Latin America, people of color are facing a harder time, are facing more and more restrictions. The fact is that every single immigrant, no matter what their race, no matter what their color, and no matter what their nationality, is having a harder time advance their status. To get non-immigrant temporary worker status, to get permanent residence green card status, or to become a U.S. citizen. So it's really a terrible restrictionist program. Separate and apart from the injustice of it all and the unfairness of it all, immigration is really what's been made America great. I mean, it's just a fact. I don't think there's any disputing it. If you look at for instance, the Corona crisis, you see a very disproportionate number of the medical service providers are immigrants. So if we want this country to advance for all of us, no matter our race, no matter our nationality, we really need more immigration, and hopefully we'll have a government. And if we don't, people like me who are looking at, retirement and Social Security and things like that, Medicare, we're not going to get our benefits if we don't have new workers. We're not going to find cures for cancer. We're not going to lead the world in technology unless we have a more liberal immigration program. So that's my 2 cents. Sorry for the soapbox, but it's a fact. I don't think that this is not something that just comes out of my head. There's a lot of economic and sociological research that shows that what I'm saying is true.
Thank you very much, Allan. Just a quick question. Well, first of all, Marilyn Horowitz says, hi, so happy you're doing this. Thank you, Marilyn. I don't know if you're connected to Rose Horowitz, who is live tweeting and producing the show for us. Mark says hello from Durham, North Carolina. And is the government still pursuing Dreamers, Allan?
Well, the government's having a hard time pursuing anybody during this crisis, but the story with the Dreamers is this. People with deferred action with childhood arrivals are waiting to hear what happens with the Supreme Court in June. And of course, we don't know. It could come sooner, could come later. Supreme Court is having its own troubles operating. But most experts feel that it's likely the Supreme Court will uphold President Trump's position and try and end the DACA program. But of course, there are a couple things I would say about that. Congress can also come in and change that and provide some kind of relief for the people with deferred action for childhood arrivals. The other thing I'd say about it is this. If you have DACA and you apply now, the Immigration Service is adjudicating these cases very quickly. You apply now for a renewal. No matter how, even if you have like a year left on your status, you apply now for a renewal, you will get 2 more years. And even if the Supreme Court rules to end the program, the proponents of ending the program have not requested the court to end it immediately. They have requested the ending of new applications. So what we're at CUNY Citizenship now, what we're urging people to do, file now, get that extra 2 years, and knock on wood, we'll have a new president by the time your status expires, and there'll be time, perhaps even a new Congress that can put some kind of legislative benefit.
Thank you, Allan. We have a question here from Courtney. How difficult and what kind of delay is there for green card holders applying for citizenship, Prashanthi?
There's several delays, as I said. Some are procedural, and some are just because that's the way the law is, and some delays are because of long waits, processing time delays, pretty much. So it depends on what basis your green card is filed on. Family basis petitions actually are going quicker than they were going quicker before this COVID-19 happened, and they were getting processed within about 4 to 6 months. And if it was immediate family relatives, there were no interviews happening, so it was pretty smooth sailing for family-based petitions, especially immediate relatives. But the delay is basically with the green card numbers not being available. So for those who don't know, there are a particular number of green card visa numbers that are issued every year for different categories. And there's so many different categories within the family base and then within the employment base category. So every country, and it's complicated, but every country gets a certain percentage of the number of green cards that are available. So no matter what your population is, whether it's one person or it's 10 billion people, you still get the same number of visa numbers. And so obviously then it's oversubscribed for some countries. As I said, for Indian nationals, Chinese nationals, it's oversubscribed. And so the wait for them, so you can file the first two steps of the green card, but in order to file the last step, which is the 485, to adjust status and to become a permanent resident, Indians most probably will have to wait for their entire lifetime at this point. And so until then, they have to remain in this horrible H-1B status, which, as I said, you don't know, how long, when your H-1 will get denied, or when you have to maybe file a transfer because you're moving employers. So it's almost like bonded labor, because you're forced to stay with the same employer, because they're so scared of filing a transfer to a different employer, because you don't know if that will get denied, and then maybe they'll fall out of status. God forbid if your H1 is approved for only 1 year, then you'd have to apply for an extension in the next year. And then what's going to happen then? So it's a horrible status to be in. And that's the only status that is available for professionals, for people who have a bachelor's degree or higher in this country. That's the only work visa, the main work visa. There's an L1, which is not really the same. Sure. This is the major work visa that's available. So what are we telling, as Allan was saying, what are we saying to, those doctors, those scientists, those IT tech professionals, and there's a shortage of tech professionals in this country. If you don't have the non-immigrants working here, most of the jobs will then go overseas. Because, I'm in this profession day in and day out, and 80% of my clients are tech people. And they tell me that they get orders to be fulfilled, they get requirements, and they're never met. Yeah. And then the job just gets shifted out somewhere else to a different country. So, would you rather bring in qualified people where, in real estate does better, everything does better, retail industry does better because they're spending money? Or would you rather that those jobs go out of the country? And, you earn tax dollars, if they stay in the country. So, it's just a win-win situation. I don't know why people don't get it.
So I want to just share this comment from Ying Chan, who's watching in Hong Kong. And she says, Allan, great to see you on screen. You look the same and as smart and feisty as ever. And Allan, I want you to know that in the middle of all of this, I get a package of these face masks from Vancouver. And I'm like, who's sending me this? I don't recognize the name of the person. And of course, it turns out it's Ying, so worried about me in New York, that she buys a bunch of face masks, sends them to Vancouver, and has her friend go to the post office and mail these to me. And, not something I didn't realize till later. Each one is individually wrapped so you can hand them to other people. So they're not in a box. How thoughtful is Ying Chan? She is an amazing person. I hope you heard me, Ying. I'm just so grateful to you and for your friendship and your thoughtfulness to send us this. She knows that we want to give these to workers and other people. So thank you, Ying, for doing that. Over to you, Allan. We have many questions coming in, and we're already an hour plus into the show. So go ahead, Allan.
Well, there are a lot of delays. Of course, the Immigration Service, and also I want to say hi to Ying Chan if she's watching. Ying is a diehard advocate for workers' rights, and that's how I met her. And she, introduced me to people at the Daily News, and the rest is history. There are tremendous delays, of course, because the Immigration Service is closed. And as I mentioned earlier in our discussion, the leadership of the New York City Council, including Corey Johnson in New York City, also NALEO and a number of other organizations have signed on to letters writing to the USCIS and suggesting that they do these naturalization applications remotely. There's no, and the swearing in ceremonies, because swearing in ceremonies, although very moving and beautiful, they're really a formality. The people have already gone through the examinations. There's no reason why people can't become U.S. citizens remotely, so that they can vote, so they can become police officers, they can become officers in the military, they can become firefighters. One thing that's interesting is that what we have found at CUNY Citizenship now is some of the paper applications are being adjudicated more rapidly than in the past. Those that don't require an interview, I'm not sure why that is, but I'm guessing that it's because some of the people who normally do interviews are now doing paper adjudication. So, that's an interesting development. But, things are going to remain tough for the immigrant community until there's a change in the administration. And that will make all the difference in the world because of the reasons I mentioned earlier, which is that the regulations and the implementation of policy is something that is under the control of the executive branch. The executive branch is headed by the president. So I'm hopeful, optimistic. I'd like to see it happen, to see if we can see a change in administration in the federal government.
Can I just ask you, just on that one point, what about the Obama deportations being at an all-time record before all of this?
Well, that wasn't good, was it? I mean, I think the Obama strategy, I think, which was a not a well thought out, or certainly was never a successful strategy, the way they defended, the way they rationalized it, was that they were going to be very tough on immigration, deportation, and in the hopes that that would show that the administration was tough on the quote unquote bad immigrants, and that would lead to the passage of a generous immigration reform bill. Of course, that didn't happen. And I don't think there's any excuse for it. I mean, I think the Obama administration and his immigration advisors need to accept the criticism, and deservedly we're being criticized. Although I'd say it's one thing that's very different. Under the Obama administration, they in fact did mainly go after people with criminal records or who had outstanding deportation orders. And of course, this administration is being much more broad in their approach. But what's important about what you point out, whether you like what Obama did or you don't like what Obama did, is that Obama was able to do it. Trump was able to do something different, and whoever becomes president next could be able to do something yet different. So the decision about whether to put someone in deportation proceedings or to actually deport that person or incarcerate that person, those things come under the law, but under the direction of the chief law enforcement officer in the federal government, which is the president of the United States. If the president says we are going to give a break to people with DACA and we're not going to deport them, that goes. If the president says we're only going to deport people with serious criminal records, that goes. If the president says we're going to utilize more people to help people become U.S. citizens, we are going to deport people, that goes. So it makes a real difference, and I hope your listeners understand that this is serious business. And immigrants, of course, are going to always be affected disproportionately, whether they're for good and for bad. And so if something good happens in terms of the change of administration, hopefully something good will happen for the immigrant community.
Thank you. Here's a lovely comment from Courtney, who says these daily shows are like the modern version of the Algonquin Roundtable, or Algonquin Roundtable for the people. Thank you so much, Courtney. Thank you all for watching. We're going to give each of our speakers a chance to give us a final thought. And I want to, and before I go, I will share some of my thoughts on immigration and where things are, and just my own gratitude as an immigrant who happened to be lucky enough to make it through the system. There is nothing guaranteed in the system, and you could think you deserve it, and you could lose out for a technicality or any other reason, or bad luck, and now people are waiting 20, 30 years, according to some of the projections, as Prashanthi said. It's terrible. I do want to show folks, and I will spend more time, I'll let my guests go before when I dive into it, but I just want to give them a taste of this so they can also reflect on it in their final comments. What you're looking at here, folks, is a list of American companies that have Indian-born CEOs. And this is just India. Forget all the other countries that have sent immigrants to this country. Right now, these countries have Indian-American CEOs, almost all of them born. They're not second generation. Almost none of them are. Almost all born in India, many in Hyderabad, right, Prashanthi? But look at these companies: Adobe, Albertsons, Ansys, Diageo, Deloitte, Flex, Gap, Harman, IBM, Google, Alphabet, Lyndell Basel, which is a huge company. These are all multi-billion-dollar companies: MasterCard, Micron, Microsoft, NetApp, Nokia, Novartis, Reckitt Benckiser. By the way, they're the ones who make Dettol, which some of you know. Stryker, Wayfair, WeWork's parent company, Workday, the FedEx president and CEO. We also want to do a shout out to Indra Nui, of course, who was kind of the dean of these folks who became so successful. And Sonia Singhal on March 23rd became CEO of Old Navy. Just think about, she's becoming Old Navy. I mean, she became the CEO of Gap, and all of this is in this country, from one country, and it says something great about them. It also says something great about America, and that's what we're missing in the debate and the conversation, and when the right says immigration is not important. But that's my soapbox, and I'm going to continue it after our guests leave. I'm going to show you something fun that happened this week, and the worst thing I saw on the internet today, which I will share with you after our guests leave so they can get back to their evenings. Let's start with you, Prashanthi. Give us your final thoughts. How can people contact you? We have your email address on the screen. Just give us some words of wisdom before you go, and then I'll turn to Allan as well.
So as you can see, I'm very passionate about, the way the immigration system is not working. And, most immigration attorneys and people who work in the immigration field, because they realize, the disproportionate way in which it's working or not working. It's just the world that we live in is, in such a state where, nothing is certain. And especially with COVID-19, and in this situation, if, non-immigrants or immigrants or whatever, people have to worry about their asylum status, they have to worry about their H1 status, they have to worry about their OPT, their H4EAD. It's almost inhumane, it's not, and so I think USCIS has to do something to make sure that, it's a more humane process to start with, and that families are not separated. And this goes to the whole, extended discussion on how immigration should change moving forward. Also, it has to be more humane. And people have to understand that, there is a system, and in this immigration system, there will always be people who will take advantage of it. And there will be people that will maybe make use of it towards and disadvantage other, US citizens. But surprisingly, that's the only news that comes out when something like that happens. Or Disney did this. They are hiring H1Bs for a much lower wage, and that became big news. When there is a law, it'll always be misused, and we should make sure that that it is not. And that's why there's laws, and that's why there's enforcement. But that doesn't mean that you change the rhetoric and you only focus on the bad things that are happening 10 times more than you focus on the good things that are happening. So you have to put things in perspective and not just, highlight things when something bad happens. So I think that's important for people to see. People only see, how they only look at instances where, maybe US citizen workers are being displaced. That's very very few instances where that happens, and far between. In most situations, in majority or even 80% of the situations, H1B employees are being paid as much or more sometimes than their US citizen counterparts or their permanent resident counterparts, because there's a regulation in place. There are LCA requirements, and there's a prevailing wage in place where you have to be paid a certain salary. So just that's my closing comments, so that put things in perspective. When something bad happens with reference to people misusing the immigration law, think of all the good things that are happening, and think of the how much more good is happening than bad.
Thank you. That was very nicely put, Prashanthi. We can find you on social media through LinkedIn and on your website, reddyesq.com for Esquire. Prashanthi Reddy, and her email address is prashanthi@reddyesq.com. And Prashanthi has 2 H's in her name, the full South Indian way, as we were saying. She's from Hyderabad. My family's from Kerala. We are so grateful to you, Prashanthi, for being here, for spending time with us. Thank you. And we wish you the very best, and your clients the very best as we go through this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sri.
All right. And let's go to Allan. Allan, we should also say, isn't it true that it used to be the Republicans who were pro-immigration and often the Democrats that would be upset about something or the other? And I remember John Kerry's 2004 campaign being some mentions of outsourcing as a big crisis that we all needed to worry about.
Well, if you look, you look at it historically, it is true, in fact, that the big business wasn't, which was the party that the Republican Party was the party of big business, and they tended to be more pro-immigration, and the Democratic Party, which was the party of labor, tended to be a little bit more restrictionist. In fact, it wasn't until 1996 that, in response to the growing influence of immigrants within the labor movement, that the AFL-CIO really did a turnaround in its position and became very much more pro-immigrant in its values and its policies, and it to this day. So we recognize and appreciate that, but we have to remember that that wasn't always the case, because the view was that the immigrants take jobs away from Americans and interfere with the ability of labor to organize. Now, labor movement is seeing how important immigrants are to the labor movement, and it's become really one of the most important forces in favor of immigrants' rights. So that's an important historical fact. In fact, I would point out that the most generous legalization program for undocumented immigrants was under President Reagan, who was a Republican, and the most restrictive immigration law passed in the last 50 to 70 years was signed by President Clinton. So fortunately, in present day, the Democratic Party is very friendly to the immigrant community, and we're hoping that they get some kind of advantage going forward. In closing, I want to say, one, I'm very happy to see a lot of the people who wrote in are wearing masks. I encourage people to do that, engage in social distancing, be very, very careful. It's rough out there. It's a really bad disease, and I want to see you all get healthy and stay healthy. I want to remind people that despite all the fears that are out there about the Trump administration, how it's adjudicating immigration applications, if you qualify for a benefit, you will get that benefit. If you qualify to become a citizen, you will become a citizen. If you qualify to get a green card, you will get a green card. That's because the law are supreme, and efforts, there may be delays, there may be more scrutiny in your application, and maybe you may have to present more evidence of your eligibility for some benefit you're applying for, but don't let this restrictionist government keep you from moving forward. And that's what we try to do with Citizenship Now. We try to help people put their papers together. We have very experienced attorneys to do that, help them with that, and paralegals. But people should not be so afraid of the Trump administration that they don't apply for a benefit that they deserve. So, there's an old saying, the road is tortuous, the future is bright. And that's the way I feel as an optimist. If you look at the way the immigrant community has integrated itself in the United States, you talk very proudly and appropriately so about all the Indian CEOs. But, there are so many immigrants all over from every nation who are making a contribution. And some of them, they start out as cooks and they end up being CEOs because of their ambition and their smarts. So America has always benefited from immigration. And if it's allowed to continue to benefit from immigration, we're going to be a much better country and much happier populace. So I thank you for letting me be on this show. It was really a pleasure. You made it very, very easy and relaxing. And I wish all your listeners and viewers all the best.
Thank you so much. That's Allan Wernick and Prashanthi Reddy. Allan can be found at @Wernick on Twitter, and he's got this amazing service. You just Google CUNY and citizenship, and it shows up. It's called Citizenship Now. Free services, folks. Free services at the university, CUNY, the great city University of New York. And here's the phone number, 646-664-9400, or text 929-343-3784. Please send these questions. Please send them questions. Please contact them. Anyone who's watching, take a photo of the screen so you can share this with a friend who's an immigrant. Maybe you have someone in your life who's an immigrant, someone who works with you, works for you. Let them contact these folks. Let them get good, accurate information. There's so much false information going around the internet. And as soon as I say bye to these folks, I'm going to thank our sponsor. And I'm also going to tell you what this was all about and explain that. How's that for a tease, Allan? That's pretty good, isn't it?
Very good. Excellent.
We're going to tell you what that was all about, and I'm going to tell you about some
You're definitely an experienced journalist.
Yeah, thank you. And both of you, I'd love to invite you back onto my other show, my spin-off show, Saturdays noon to 2 on WBAI, the progressive radio station in New York, noon to 2, not tomorrow, on another Saturday. I'd love to have you back to talk and take calls from our great listeners all across New York and the world, because it's on WBAI.org. Please tune in tomorrow, noon to 2, so you can catch me and you can see what the show is all about. Thank you, Allan. Thank you, Prashanthi. We wish you the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All the best to you as well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Folks, that was our wonderful guests with us today in both Allan and Prashanthi. So thank you to both of them. And for those of you watching, thank you for staying. Thank you for watching. It's Friday. 37 straight shows that we've done here. I'm exhausted. I know you're exhausted, but we're all learning together. And today's guests were Prashanthi Reddy and Allan Wernick, who are sharing such good information. We're so grateful to them. Please follow them. And why I reintroduce our guests at the end of our show is because this show is going to end and replay on whatever platform you're watching. Here's a chance for you to know why and who and what we just did. So please do share this. You can tag a friend right now and they can watch this. And the best way to keep in track of all my talks and stuff is to go on to YouTube and follow me there. Go on to YouTube and hit subscribe. SriNet is my show. And once you hit subscribe, you will get an alert when I'm live on YouTube. You'll get an email. It's a very nice system. I'm also learning how to use YouTube. And before we go, I'm going to share the worst thing I saw on the internet today, and I'm going to show you something fun as well. And I want to thank, none of this would be possible without our sponsors, and we have a fabulous food trucks, frontlinefoodtrucks.com, frontlinefoodtrucks.com. Please follow them and please give them money. Just go there and donate any amount of money that will benefit food truck workers to then benefit frontline healthcare workers at NYU Langone and other hospitals. Food is donated by La Colombe, Sweet Green, Chobani, Kind Bar, Blue Bottle Coffee. It's this amazing project. Bob Goldberg is the president of the New York Food Truck Association. His mother, Cheryl Goldberg, who some of you know, was the New York One News parenting reporter for many years, 25 plus years. And she would be so proud of her son doing such great work as president of the Food Truck Association and doing such good work. And by the way, the money for this ad came from an anonymous third-party donor. I'm so grateful to this person. They're supporting the show, supporting the Food Truck Association, and supporting frontline workers. Please do step up and donate. If you found the show useful, $5, $10, anything would help. So please do that. Please share it right now. And if you would like to get an ad on our show, it's so inexpensive. As you can see on this, it's very, very inexpensive. A great way for you to support our show. And also that way I can pay our producers and make a better program. This program would benefit from a little bit more production and production values. The other way to find out what I'm up to is to pull out your phone right now. And if you have WhatsApp, you can just get on my WhatsApp alert list. It is not a group, it's an alert list, so that when I'm on the air, you get an alert. So you can do that as well, or you can just write to me on my WhatsApp. My WhatsApp is very easy to find, but I'm going to also put that on the screen right now so you have it. Just message me and we'll send you an alert every time I'm live. I'm just so grateful to all of you. And just before we go, I want to do a couple of things. First, I want to tell you what I've learned doing this. We're going to do an episode on what have you learned during the quarantine? What have you done that you weren't doing before? And I have some interesting things that I'll share, but I do want to point out that I now have a relationship again with this thing, my hairbrush. I don't have a lot of hair. On one of my shows, somebody who was bald said, Sri and I are follically challenged. Excuse me, we're not follically challenged. We're follically failed, devastated, decimated, lost. We're not challenged. And so I get a haircut. Because I have so little hair, I get a haircut almost every 3 to 4 weeks because otherwise I hate it when it grows out. And now I've now started brushing my hair again, which I had not had to do for so many years, maybe 5 years since I've touched this, maybe more. And So that's one of the things that's changed in my life. I hope you'll tell me what's changed in yours. We'll have a whole show about it. It'll be fun. Some serious, some not so serious things, of course. And I promised I would tell you what this photo was all about. And this was part of our citizenship ceremony. As I said, we had a very serious conversation just now about the immigration situation in America. And I want to tell you that people like me and Rupa, who have managed to get through the hurdles to come to this country, we are so blessed and so lucky. And it is nothing, it's not a reflection on our qualifications or our qualities or anything like that. It's luck that made that happen, and support from friends and family, and people who wrote letters on our behalf, recommendations, all of that stuff, and people who pushed us and coached us and helped us, and great lawyers. We work with Cyrus Mehta, who is a very popular immigration lawyer, people like that, to make this possible. And I'm so grateful. I'll never forget that there was no right for us to be here to automatically get citizenship. And we are so grateful, as we are grateful to our country, India, where I was not born there. I was born in Japan. Rupa was born in India. But we are so grateful to both countries. And I wanted to share with you that photo and other aspects of it from our live tweeting ceremony that we did in 2013. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that story. So here we took a photo like this, and I made a joke of it saying this is a kiss Bollywood style, right? In Bollywood, you don't actually kiss on camera. So Bollywood kiss American style, minutes after Rupa and I were sworn in as citizens. So I'm just going to go back a little bit so we can show you the story. I had to ask permission to live tweet, and they gave me permission to live tweet. So they gave me a nice seat at the front of the house, which was incredible. And these are all people who tweeted and shared with our hashtag SrupaUSA was the hashtag. And all these people, I'm so grateful. I'll never forget that day. Today was the day we became citizens. And I had this flag pin that I wore, India and America. I'll never forget that day. And so I wanted to commemorate it. And I live tweeted it. Some people say, why do you live tweet? Why couldn't you just pay attention and be more present? Well, I can tell you that I'm so grateful that I did live tweet, because I was able to share the story very widely. But now I have a record, a historical record. It's preserved. No matter what happens to me, my great-great-grandchildren will be able to find the story of what happened to grandpa and grandma, or great-grandpa and grandma, during the story. Just before the citizenship event, we watched Arvind Mahankali, who won the spelling bee with a Yiddish word. How perfect was that? Some of you may know he won with the word Canadal was the word that he won with. And this was just minutes before we left for our ceremony. This was the place where we had the ceremony. And one of our friends brought his mother. Greg Lord brought his mother. This was us, very excited to be there. My friend Dan Foreman was there. Our friend Melanie was there. And we just had an incredible day. This is a friend Melanie, our friend Hemali, our friend Dan Foreman. You see them all there. It was such a great day for us, memorable, and also a day where you kind of think about so many things. And by the way, I'll just say that thanks to Greg Lord, I learned about vertical panoramas on your phone. You know how you always take a panorama like this? Well, you can flip the phone and take a vertical panorama, and he did a great job that day. And I learned that on my way into Federal Plaza, 26 Federal Plaza, where the ceremony took place. This was one last check where they look. I'm going to show you my green card. If you haven't seen it before, that's what it looks like. We would have ended up sitting in the back, but because we were live tweeting, they moved us to the front. Here's what our green cards look like. They're not green on the front, but they are green on the back, or at least they used to be. And so we took this photo and we shared it and we posted that. Lots of people were live tweeting. Every chair has this, a copy of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, all of that in one place. As you can see, people are sharing. People are using all kinds of tools to do this. This was 7 years ago now. And this is the feeling from the back of the room. We'll show you from the back or from the front of the room in a second what was going on. And Melanie Huff took photos of, she said, my fellow Americans. And I was live tweeting on the laptop on my Chromebook, and they put us in the front of the room, which was very, very generous of them to do that. This is a photo I took while I was being sworn in. Again, people will say, Sri, you were not concentrating, but I can tell you that since this, I have had the honor to speak at 2 citizenship ceremonies, unbelievably important and moving situations. I was so grateful to do that. Here's our friend Melanie with a flag in her ear, and my mom was there as well. It was so special to have her with us that day. We missed my dad. They are the reason for anything I've done, and I'm missing them terribly. People love that Bollywood quiz. These are all tweets with that hashtag, folks. And when we got our American passports, look how similar they look to the Indian passport, which was kind of interesting to think about. And I live tweeted my passport, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the day I got to vote for the first time, I voted, and it meant so much to me. So that was just, I thought I would share that with you. Thank you for anybody who's still here. I'm so grateful that you stuck through that. Really amazing. Let's see here. Let's see some of the comments. Rose, our producer, they give out a shout out to readyesquire.com. Courtney said, terrific show, full of information. Thank you, Courtney. Jonathan says, engrossing show, dense with important information. Thank you. Thank you all for watching. Please hit share, tag a friend right now. They can watch this at some other point. Mark says, amazing job. Alan's links are there. And downloaded WhatsApp just to get the alerts and worth it. Oh my God. Jonathan, you are amazing. That you took a screenshot of that. Sorry if we went to black for a second. Terry says, no, Sri, we're lucky ones to have you. Thank you. Arlene Strupa, USA, love it. Sri, these are great images to share. And Terry says, Melanie Huff, beautiful photos. And Christine Del Bello is watching from California. Thanks for sharing. When we were in DC, our daughter's 7th grade civics class hosted a citizenship ceremony at the school. Great learning experience. Absolutely. All of what you folks are saying is so meaningful and special. Let me show you. I also promised to show you the worst thing I saw on the internet today. But first, I want to show you something that ties into last weekend's show. We've had so many amazing shows, folks. 36 days in a row. Last Friday, we had a funny show where we laughed and laughed and laughed because we had a Pulitzer Prize winning cartoonist, Matt Davies. And here's his cartoon, oh, well, off to the bank and the food bank. And that's so sad in America today. Matt is an amazing Pulitzer Prize winning cartoon. We had a stand-up comic in Mona Sheikh, and we had an expert on how to deal with some of these aspects. It was such an important story, and our friend Jennifer, who joined us, was amazing. Jennifer Sakai from the Aging Life Care Association member. She was amazing, and it was so great to have her. So I said I'll show you the worst thing I've seen on the internet today. Some of you also saw it, I'm sure, and here it is. It won't be a surprise to some of you what it could be. We're sharing it today on this topic with immigration in our mind. Here is what the President of the United States chose to share today. Liberate, let me just pull this up so you can see it. Liberate Virginia, and before that she said liberate Wisconsin and Minnesota or whatever. It's just so outrageous. Liberate Michigan, outrageous. And save your great Second Amendment. It's under siege. Why? You're just at home. What is he talking about? What does that mean? It's so outrageous. The worst thing I saw on the internet today, and it sadly reflects on what's going on in America, that even something as simple as this issue of let's stay home, let's be safe, that's so clear. His own staff are telling us to do that. He has chosen to go out there and politicize it and make it really, really uncomfortable for everybody. And I can tell you folks that I try not to be political on these shows. 36 days, I've not really hit politics. But I do want to say that this president started off on Monday by saying he has full authority. Then by Thursday, he said, okay, I don't have full authority. The states are going to decide. The governors are going to decide. Perfect. That's exactly what he said. Perfect. And then today he does this. Liberate Virginia, talking about the Second Amendment, talk that can get people in trouble. Jay Inslee, the governor of Washington State, said that this is a problem. Somebody's going to get hurt with this. And that's a problem that we need to be aware of. The governor of Virginia said, I don't have time for Twitter war, right? We are in a war. I don't have time for Twitter war. And that's what we need to think about at this time. We should all pull together whether you're in anywhere in the world, we need to pull together. And this is why we did a show about will things change, and I'll do another one of these. Will anything change after this? And I'm worried that the answer is no, that nothing's going to change. We will go back to our ways of how we treat people. We'll go back to our ways of how we charge people in hospital bills, medical bills, all of this stuff, and that political partisan divide is going to be what America is about. Tom Friedman was just on the air saying that, you know, there's a flattening the curve of this, there is an apex of it. All those things are true, but there isn't one for climate change. And if nothing else, this should be a wake-up call for that. There are going to be more pandemics, more problems. There is no pushing back on climate change unless we do this. I was on the record on multiple places, multiple times, including for an article where they said, make predictions for 2020. And I said, 2020 is going to be the most important year when historians look back at what happened or didn't happen. The elections in America, of course, Brexit, and the deadline for waking up to the environmental crisis ahead of us. If we don't in 2020 make strategic, long-term, permanent decisions, we'll be too late. And in the future, they will look back at us in 2020 and say, they got it right, they saved the planet. Or they'll look back and say, that's when everything went wrong, in 2020. We said 2016 election is important, of course, but now 2020, and that's before Corona. So with Corona, what does that mean? Where do we go from here? You help decide that, folks, in everything you do, in the actions you take. And I'm so grateful to all of you for listening, participating. I want to tell you about some amazing shows we have coming in the next 3 days. Tomorrow, WBAI, noon to 2, the spin-off program from this show. We're so grateful to have this show on WBAI every single Saturday, noon to 2, a helpful, hopeful call-in show. Please join us. You can be anywhere in the world, WBAI radio, and you can listen from anywhere, 99.5 FM in New York. So please join us for that. Then in the evening at 4 p.m., Rose Horowitz has put together an incredible, important, fun show about children's book authors. So we're going to hear from some fabulous children's book authors. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So noon is the WBAI show. Then this show at 4 p.m. Eastern. Please join us. And then on Sunday morning, the New York Times read-along is epic read-along. How do I know? Because this is our speaker, folks, Judge Rosemary Aquilina. She was the judge who presided over the 2018 USA Gymnastics sex abuse scandal and sentenced Dr. Larry Nassar for up to 175 years in prison. She let those girls go on the stand, those women speak. She made that happen. She is an amazing jurist. She's an amazing expert on the law. She's an amazing judge, but she is going to talk to us and read the New York Times with us, 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Neil Parekh is our executive producer. He's going to guest host, and I'm going to play executive producer, which will be lots of fun for me, and put him on the hot seat. But a very important topic. Please join us. Please tell your friends. You saw her on TV. Now she'll be on your Facebook with you, answering your questions about anything you want to share. Please share this. Please tag your friends. Go onto my Facebook right now. Go onto my YouTube right now. Subscribe, and you will get reminders when I'm live on any of these shows. So please join us for that. It will we really appreciate that. We now even have sponsors. So we love our sponsors on all our programs. So please join us. And then 9 p.m. on Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday is our regular positivity show. And we're going to bring you, it's a surprise, but I'm going to tell you a background of that. The 9 p.m. guest, one of our guests, has taught the most popular class at the history of Harvard University. Classes about happiness, positivity, psychology. Amazing speaker. The most popular classes in the history of Harvard University. And he's going to be here 9 p.m. for our positivity show. And then next week, we have a full run of amazing events. I'll just give you 2 examples. One, on Monday, we're going to start a series that I want to approach. I've said to you many times, work on something. Use this time that you have given as a gift, for better or worse, work on something. And one of the things we want you to work on is your Twitter game, because we want you to be better at Twitter. So we're going to have guests who will help you get better at Twitter. Maybe you're not on Twitter at all. Maybe you are on Twitter but don't tweet. Maybe you use Twitter but you're confused. This is going to be a wonderful way to learn Twitter. So that's our work on something in the future. We're going to do podcasts and newsletters and all of that as well. Speaking of newsletters, if you aren't getting my newsletter that we produce every Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern, please do email me and I'll put you on our newsletter list. We have fantastic feedback to that newsletter. All of this is because of you, the community that lets me do all of this digital stuff. And then Tuesday, we have the head of Stanford Hospital's OBGYN program, Dr. Scott Chernoff, is going to be with us, and he is going to answer medical questions. We may have another doctor as well. So please join us for that. It's going to be an awesome, awesome show. We have the former U.S. ambassador to India is joining us. We're going to have the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal. We're going to have Joe Lockhart, who was Bill Clinton's press secretary, is going to be on the show. So please email me, send me suggestions, send us sponsors, please. We love the sponsors we have. We want new ones. Please send them along. Sri@Sri.net, Sri@Sri.net, @Sri on Twitter. Thank you very much, everybody. Let me just look at your comments and then let you go. It's Friday night. I hope you have better things to do than this. Nitin says, I think we're far more robust democracy in India. All right, buddy. We can talk about that. My dad is watching. Namaste. My father says hi. Our politicians are doing a much better job. Yes, they are doing a better job about what's happening with the crisis, and I hope and pray that stays that way, because the danger is that if something goes wrong in India, which is such a big, populous, dense country, we could be in trouble. And this is what Nitin was talking about. I'll just show his comment here. Look at this. These lines. These lines are from the famous FT list, and this is from 2 days ago. And ignore the China line because you don't know if you can trust the China numbers. But look at South Korea in blue. Look at the US in pink at the very top. Look for India. You have to find India on this, right? Look at Australia. Australia, amazing. In the middle of all their forest fires and everything that they had through January, they controlled things. Look at South Korea and now look at the United States. Both got their first confirmed cases on the same day in the US and Korea. Look at the US numbers. Look at the Korean numbers. This is where you blame the government, multiple governments in the US, but starts at the top. The buck stops at the top, and that's what we're seeing here. Rose is telling us about the 4 children's book authors talk about what they're reading now, and they'll be reading from our books. And Rose is Twitter better. And shout out to our sponsor today. And Courtney says, maybe we could get the former French embassy consul and media executive. Perfect. Anybody, if you have a guest suggestion, we'd love to have them on the show. We learn so much from people around the world. I learn so much every day. I learn from you. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll be in touch. Please email me. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for this show, Children's Book Authors, noon to 2 for my WBAI show. We have fantastic guests, including a nurse who will be on the air with us. Somebody asked me, how come you don't have nurses on your show? The reason we haven't been able to get nurses is that doctors are able to be in private practice, and so they're able to go on any show they want. And the hospitals want doctors on the air, not nurses. And so, but we found a nurse who will be on our WBAI show, and I hope to bring her. And I said, do you want to do 1 hour or 2 hours? And she said 2 hours. So she's going to answer questions from New Yorkers. It was that important to us that we were able to get her. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you. It's Friday night. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please tell a friend about this show. Email somebody, text somebody right now so they can join us and know what we're doing. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye. God bless.